I'm Melanie Abrams, and this is the whole truth on the stay-at-home protests. But I wanted people to understand why the protests were happening and maybe get through to a few of the protesters, because this is about more than people just being reckless or stupid. No, they aren't protesting because they want a haircut. No, they aren't protesting because they desperately miss their graveyard shift at the 7-Eleven. And no, they are not protesting because they think that the coronavirus is a hoax. Some of them do, but most of them are protesting because they have been fed a false narrative by very small, very evil, very smart alt-right groups who have weaponized their concept of freedom. 2/3 of Americans oppose opening businesses too early, and 72% of Americans across party lines believe that slowing the spread of this virus is more important than the economy. So the people who are advocating a swift reopening of the economy are a very small minority, and the people actually out there protesting are an even smaller number. They're just loud and bizarre, which is why we're hearing a lot about them. The most famous encourager of these protests in our country is our own president, Donald Trump. Here are his tweets encouraging liberating states, and all of these states have then had protests. These protests have been organized and paid for by a few small alt-right groups who have even offered to pay the legal fees and bail bonds for people if they get arrested while they protest. The first group is called FreedomWorks. It assisted in establishing the Tea Party in 2009. They are organizing protests, polling on those protests in swing districts, and then reporting the data to Donald Trump's task force. That's right, our own president is asking for data on these protests. Stephen Moore, who is an author and economic political contributor, is organizing protests in Wisconsin. Convention of States Action is organizing mask-free protests in Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin. They've also started a new initiative called Open the States, which they are inaccurately reporting as a spontaneous citizen movement on their website. It is not. And here's my favorite. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and Trump advisor Michonne Maddock have organized the Michigan protest Operation Gridlock, which so atrociously blocked access to hospitals. Now buckle up, because here's something real interesting. FreedomWorks, Stephen Moore, and Convention of States Action are all funded by Charles Koch, the 11th richest person in the world and one of the Republican Party's biggest donors. And Donald Trump's own cabinet and advisors are completely entangled in these protests. So these alt-right groups funded by filthy rich Republicans, which, before you get your panties in a twist, is not an opinion, it's a fact. They are both filthy rich and registered Republicans, and they are funding these alt-right groups. You can follow the money. Are spreading memes and news and having their staff members pose as regular people, commenting on things on Facebook, trying to convince people that quarantine is a form of communism and liberal conspiracy to keep you out of work. But here's why that's complete nonsense. Say you own a small business in Georgia and the stay-at-home order is lifted. So you are now legally permitted to operate, but only 40% of people polled said that they would go out again when their states reopened. So you're now operating at only 40% of your original clientele. You've lost 60% of your business. And because you're legally permitted to operate, you are no longer eligible for any of the stimulus benefits whatsoever. You are not eligible for unemployment, PPP loans, disaster loans, SBA loans, none of it. You're on your own. And your employees can either choose to come back to work, or if they fear for their health, they can quit. Now, if you quit, you are not eligible for unemployment. Unemployment is only for people who are laid off. So now your employees are out of luck. Now let's say all of your employees come back to work, but only 40% of that clientele returns. And that is a best case scenario. With a 60% loss in profits, you're gonna have to furlough some staff. Now, because they've been furloughed or laid off, that means they are eligible for unemployment, but you're legally permitted to operate, which means that the cost of their unemployment is on your tab. Okay, let's take another example. Let's say you are a parking attendant in Georgia. Let's say you're working 40 hours a week at minimum wage, which in Georgia is $5.15 an hour, $206 a week. But right now with stay-at-home orders, you are eligible for a minimum of $600 a week in unemployment. So what the hell is anyone's rush? You think your liberties are being taken away? You think America was founded on your right to get a haircut? You think this is what it's like to live in a communist country? You think that protecting others by staying home while thousands of people die is somehow an invasion of your civil liberties? Give me a break. The billionaire groups orchestrating these protests do not care about our liberties or our rights or our small businesses or even our lives. They care about the stock market. And that might sound far-fetched to you and me, who don't have millions or billions of dollars invested in the stock market. But for example, the Koch brothers own 7 conglomerates, and just a quick number, they own Georgia Pacific. And between March and April, that stock fell by 50%. And Donald Trump, according to his own 2019 financial disclosures, should have lost up to $360,000 so far this year. Okay, so these millionaires and billionaires lose their incomes when we are not purchasing their products or services. Their number one priority is reopening the economy. Their number one priority. It's not you. It's not your small business. It's not your freedom. They know you're not stupid. They know they can't reopen the economy unless they convince a very small but very loud segment of our population that their freedoms are being taken away, that their right to work, their right to go to school, their right to walk around without a mask is being encroached upon by the big bad wolf. So they start the protest pages. They start this mini movement that has got the whole country talking about reopening the economy, and they've branded it as a people's movement. And if we lose a few more lives because of it, well, that's just the price of freedom in America. Protesters, wake up. The coronavirus isn't a liberal conspiracy. It came from a communist country. Protesters themselves are contracting the disease and dying from it. You are being played into entering a broken economy, going back to an underpaid job, and becoming ineligible for any of the benefits that you have earned as an American. Those benefits are the rights that are being taken from you. Literal billionaires want things to go back to the way they were because they want to go back to being literal billionaires. Republicans don't want to keep giving you back your own tax dollars so you can survive. They are playing a game with your lives, and you are letting them. And by demanding that states reopen, you are taking away my right to stay at home and remain healthy. And your rights end when they threaten the rights of others. And like it or not, that's the truth. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Whole Truth TV, and click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because we've got the whole truth on the things that matter to you coming up for you soon.